Am I? Reclaiming the Self Beneath the Thoughts by Christophe Michaels. Prologue. The moment before the shift. This book is not meant to be consumed. It is meant to be remembered. Not everyone will feel the shift right away. That's okay. You weren't meant to force it. You were only meant to become aware of it. And awareness, real awareness, has its own timeline. You may begin reading this and feel a quiet resistance, a whisper of doubt, a mind that tries to make sense of it all. Let that be. The ego was built to protect what you believed yourself to be. It won't dissolve in a sentence, but if you let this book meet you where you are, without effort, without performance, it will open something inside of you, subtly, quietly, and then suddenly, like a light shift you almost missed, the world will begin to change. What once looked like a dim color TV will unfold into full spectrum HDR. You'll start to see the layers, the energy behind the words, the stillness behind the movement, the sacred behind the ordinary. And when it clicks, not in your head, but in your being, it will feel as though the universe is smiling back at you. Not because something has changed, but because you finally slowed down enough to see what was always true. I didn't write this book to teach you something new. I wrote it because you already know. You just forgot. The words you'll read are not tools. They are keys. Keys to a door that only opens when you stop trying to kick it down. There is no system to master, no religion to recite, no mental gymnastics required. All that's asked of you is this: be still enough to feel the shift. Be honest enough to notice the illusion. Be brave enough to wake up. You don't need to act to initiate this. You are not here to make something happen. You are simply being called to remember, to return, to be. And in due time, not a second too soon or too late, this book will reveal its truth to you. The only question is, am I ready? Chapter 1. The Forgotten Core. Reclaiming the Am. If you want to transform your life, you must understand a simple but dangerous illusion. The person you believe yourself to be is not real. That may sound philosophical, but it's entirely practical. Your life, as you know it, is being governed not by truth, but by a fragile, ever-shifting construct. This construct has a name. You call it I. I is the identity you've inherited, absorbed, and assembled from a million influences. Parents, teachers, trauma, victories, failures, Instagram, church, news, lovers, enemies. I is the role you play in response to the world's expectations. You think it's you. It isn't. It's a reflection, and a distorted one at that. It's the mask you built so that you wouldn't have to feel exposed, questioned, or not enough. But here's the truth. The I is not the self. It is the shell. And the more energy you put into reinforcing the shell, the more exhausted, lost, and unstable you become. Because you're feeding something that doesn't actually exist. The origin of separation. In ancient texts, there is a symbolic story of a man and a woman placed in paradise. They lived without shame, without conflict, and without ego. They walked with God. They had no concept of themselves as better or less than, because there was no comparison. There was no I. There was only am. But then came the idea. Not a weapon, not an army, just an idea. You are not enough. That one suggestion created a fracture. It introduced lack. It planted separation where there had only been unity. The woman believed it. The man followed. And from that moment, the human mind began a lifelong obsession to prove that it is enough. Thus, the ego was born. The ego is not evil. It is simply confused. It is the mind's attempt to define itself without the divine. And like any structure without foundation, it must be constantly maintained. Through pride, through comparison, through performance, and through pain. This is why even the most successful people feel a void they cannot name. Because success built on the I can only inflate the mask. It cannot reach the am. The ocean and the well. Your being is not on the surface. It's not in your resume. It's not in your reputation. It's not even in your personality. Those things exist in layers, and those layers can lie. Picture this. Your actions are the surface of the ocean, always moving, reacting, changing direction with every wind. Just beneath is your personality, semi-stable but molded by life's conditions. Deeper still is your subconscious, silent but powerful currents that drive your emotions, beliefs, and reactions without your permission. But at the very bottom, where no storm can reach, there is stillness. That is your true self. That is your AM. Now imagine dropping a well straight to the ocean floor. The well is narrow. Most people never access it, but those who do find something that changes everything. Stillness, presence, peace, authority. Because while the surface cannot touch the bottom can transform everything above it. If a shift happens at the depth, it bubbles upward. It flows through the subconscious. It begins to shape the personality. Eventually, it alters behavior. Not through force, but alignment. This is why deep change feels effortless, and shallow change feels like a fight. Most people try to fix their lives from the surface. They change habits. They chase motivation. They reinvent themselves. But that's rearranging waves. Nothing really changes until you return to the depth. The reclamation of being here is the secret most never discover. You are not the one speaking in your mind. You are the one listening. That subtle shift from being the voice to being the awareness is the beginning of power. From that place, you no longer seek peace, because peace is already there. You no longer need to be enough, because nothing is missing. You no longer chase purpose, because the purpose is to remember. And here's the most important part. The being, the am, is not something you become. It is something you've never stopped being. It's been buried under noise, buried under fear, buried under 1,000 versions of I. But it's still there, still, unmoved, waiting. And once you learn to live from the am, you will no longer be manipulated by the identity you were told to protect. You will see how the serpent still whispers, not with words, but with culture, emotion, and doubt, trying to convince you that you are separate from the source that made you whole. You are not. The well of stillness, the structure of gratitude. Transformation doesn't begin with knowledge. It begins with remembrance of what's always been true but rarely accessed. Most people live entirely at the surface. They identify with the I, the voice, the mask, the reactive mind that constantly seeks validation, safety, and worth. But that I is a fragmented self, built in pieces, shaped by wounds, protected by defenses. Go deeper. Your actions, ever-changing and impulsive, are like waves at the surface of the ocean. Beneath that sits your personality, slightly more stable, but still evolving, molded by time, environment, and influence. Deeper still is the subconscious. This is the soul's ocean current, old, powerful, largely invisible. It carries inherited patterns, traumas, beliefs, all silently directing behavior. But if you could reach the bottom of that ocean, you would find stillness. And anchored in that stillness, perfectly untouched by the chaos above, is the well. And now we name it. The well is made of love and held together by gratitude. The structure that holds peace. A well at the bottom of an ocean may sound impossible. How can anything stand still under such force? That's the miracle. The structure of gratitude is what keeps the inner water from mixing with the outer chaos. The walls of that well are not made of stone. They're made of stillness, acceptance, and divine remembrance. Gratitude is not reactive. It's not just a good feeling after something good happens. Gratitude is the original state before the ego felt cheated. Where there is gratitude, depression cannot survive. Where there is gratitude, anger has no throne. Where there is gratitude, peace is not a hope. It is present tense. This is why Scripture calls God the King of Peace. Why the Son is named the Prince of Peace. And why we, as heirs, are not just followers of peace, but children of it. Gratitude is not the result of peace. Peace is the consequence of gratitude. And gratitude is the structure that makes space for truth to rise. Revelation only rises from depth. Your most profound ideas, those moments of imagination, of spark, of pure download, they do not come from effort. They come from quiet. They come from depth, and they only emerge when the water is still. The surface can never produce wisdom, only noise. But the well at the bottom, where being resides, that's where the eternal voice still speaks. What bubbles up from that place may appear as revelation to one, imagination to another, epiphany to someone else. But all are the same in origin. They are signals from the place that cannot be named by man, only by God. And the name He calls you, that is the name written in heaven. The name that, when spoken, makes you new. The triggers that become demons. Now, let's go higher in understanding. The ego, or the I, does not go unguarded. It is protected by countless mental mechanisms built for survival. Triggers, guards, inner soldiers. Their job is to defend your castle, your fragile sense of self. But here's the paradox. When those same guards turn inward, the protection becomes persecution. You summon these defenses to block out pain, and in doing so, you begin attacking peace. You try to keep others from hurting you, and instead, you hurt yourself. You build walls to stay safe, and those walls become your prison. In ancient times, a king could call on legions to defend him. And Jesus, during his crucifixion, said he could summon thousands of angels. But here is the contrast. One summons protection through surrender. The other summons destruction through fear. Angels protect what is eternal. Triggers defend what is temporary. And the more you cling to the I, the more your own mind becomes hostile territory. The path back. The answer is not to destroy the ego. The answer is to relocate your center from surface to stillness, from identity to essence, from I to am. Anchor yourself not in your thoughts, not in your triggers, not in your story, but in the well, the structure of love held in place by gratitude. There and only there, you will hear what cannot be taught. You will receive what cannot be earned, and you will become who you've always been. Chapter 2. Mastering Existence Through the Body. If the mind is a storm, then the body is the doorway to stillness. Most people who suffer from insomnia, anxiety, or an overactive mind experience one common thing: a runaway thought loop. Even when they lie down at night, their mind continues playing its internal television. Thoughts switch scenes without warning. The remote control seems lost. And sleep? Nowhere in sight. But the mind cannot be silenced by thought. It must be outpaced by presence, and presence starts in the body. The practice of feeling without movement. There is a simple but profound exercise. Start by lying down. Close your eyes and begin with your toes. Wiggle them gently. Feel them move. Then stop. Now, feel them without moving. This is where everything begins to change. You are no longer thinking about your body. You are now experiencing its essence. Move next to your feet. Then ankles, calves, knees, thighs, upward to your fingers, arms, chest, shoulders. Then your scalp, your cheeks, your jaw. Each time, move first, then feel without movement. You will discover something strange, something most people never realize. Your body holds more intelligence than your thoughts. It holds more stillness than your mind ever will. You are sitting on untapped energy. The physical body is not just flesh and blood. It is power. Split a single atom in your body, and the energy released can power a city. What lies within you is not small. It is atomic, divine, and interconnected. When you feel your body deeply, you awaken that connection. A dentist knows the sensation of each tool. They are fully present in the task. A ballet dancer isn't thinking about movement. They are in it. A child running barefoot on grass isn't lost in thoughts. They are feeling life. Presence is not something mystical. It is the discipline of attention. It is knowing how to brush your teeth and be aware of each bristle against the enamel. It is walking down the street and feeling the heel-to-toe contact with the pavement. It is eating without a screen and letting taste become a revelation. To master this is to master existing. The power of the tongue. Now, back to the lying meditation. As you move through the body, feeling the presence of each part, you eventually arrive at the tongue. The tongue is rarely still. Even when you're not speaking, it subtly moves. It reacts to thought. It tenses during stress. It forms words you haven't said. But once you reach the tongue and let it be still, the entire body follows. In every experience I've guided that moment, the stillness of the tongue is when the person falls asleep. Not because they're tired, but because they've returned to harmony. Still tongue, still mind, still soul. It's no coincidence that spiritual traditions speak of the tongue with reverence. It holds the power of life and death. When it is active, it creates. When it is stilled, it receives. The body is not separate from the spirit. This is the great mistake of modern thought, to see the body as a vessel, but not as a voice. The body is not just a vehicle, it is a compass. It tells you when you're off balance. It tells you when you're aligned. Your job is not to override the body, but to listen to it until it becomes silent. Not because it's suppressed, but because it has been acknowledged. And in that silence, the well opens. The thoughts slow. The peace rises. And for the first time, you stop chasing sleep, happiness, or control. Because you've returned to where you already are. Here. Chapter 3. The Social Illusion and the Masterpiece of Existence. If you were the only person on earth, how many of your problems would still exist? Try this exercise. Not just in theory, embody it. For 10 minutes, become the last human alive. All the titles, the comparisons, the arguments, the expectations, the performance, gone. Now look around you. The birds still fly. The trees still sway. The water still moves. The wind still breathes. Nothing is in conflict. Everything is in place. You don't need language to see it. You don't need science to prove it. The proof is in the stillness. Everything in nature already belongs. That's the truth we forget. Most of our suffering is not existential. It's social. It's not the earth that's broken. It's the invisible structures humans have built on top of it. Hierarchy, status, race, class, image, noise. But when you take yourself out of that illusion, even for a moment, and return to nature, not just as scenery, but as teacher, you begin to see clearly again. God, the artist. Start paying attention to what's right in front of you. Look at a single bush, just one. How many shades of green can you find? Light green, dusty green, bright neon green, deep forest green. Count them. Then pick a color, red for instance, and scan your environment. Where is red showing up? A stop sign, a pedal, a roof, a flicker of taillight, a rusted metal beam. How many types of red are there in a single moment? And then it hits you. This isn't random. This isn't chaotic. This is a painting. But not a painting in the human sense, with lines and shapes and tidy compositions. This is something greater. This is God's artwork, a creation where the brushstrokes only make full sense when you zoom out. Some paintings, when viewed up close, look like random strokes, colors bleeding into one another, abstract and meaningless. But take a step back, and the image reveals itself. You see form, movement, beauty. Even if no clear lines are defined, that's what reality is. From up close, life can feel messy. But from the right depth, it is a perfectly constructed masterpiece. Every line sculpted, every color chosen, every movement aligned. The collapse of the social lens. When you begin to see the world like this, your lens changes. Social issues don't disappear, but they shrink. They stop being identity-level threats. They become background noise to the deeper signal of divine order. You realize nature is not competing. Trees are not measuring themselves against each other. Clouds don't complain about how fast they're moving. Birds don't need therapy before they sing. The earth is not in crisis. We are. And only because we stopped noticing what was always true. You are part of the masterpiece. You don't have to be enough to belong to it. You already do. The more time you spend observing the perfection around you, the less entangled you become in the chaos others create. This is not detachment. This is realignment. You don't need to reject the world. You just need to return to the part of you that was never lost in it. Chapter 4. The other is you. Seeing. Consciousness in others. Every person you encounter is more than a face, a voice, or a role. They are a mirror. Each interaction is not random, it's a reflection. And consciousness, in its truest form, always recognizes itself. You may feel as though you've lived many lives, some filled with peace, others with mistakes, struggle, and shadow. But when you see those things in another, don't rush to judge, observe. To see them clearly is to see yourself clearly. To see their pain is to remember your own. To see their confusion is to revisit the part of you that's still searching. This is not projection. This is recognition. Observing the disconnect. By applying the same awareness we explored in solitude, the awareness of toes, of breath, of gratitude, you begin to see people differently. You don't just see what they said, what they did, how they moved. You start to see what's missing. You feel the server connection between their actions and their emotions, or the lack of it. You notice when someone speaks from their I, the identity layer. You also notice when something bubbles up from their am, even if just for a moment. And when you see that, you stop reacting. You give space. You create room between the I and the am. You let them breathe inside their own being. And without saying a word, your presence becomes an invitation for them to come home to themselves. From statement to question, the flip. Here's the shift. When you create space between the I and the am, you allow it to reverse. It becomes, am I? That small rearrangement is everything. It moves from definition to discovery, from ego to essence. Am I judging? Am I seeing clearly? Am I present? Am I projecting? And deeper still, am I rooted in God? Because only God lives in actuality. Everything else is filtered through trauma, culture, memory, desire, fear. You don't live in reality. You live in your interpretation of it. And when you accept this, not as theory but as a lens, everything changes. You stop demanding perfection from others. You stop reacting to surface behavior. You begin offering space, not to excuse, but to understand. seeing the humanity. Once you truly grasp this, you begin to look at people differently. You no longer ask, "What's wrong with them?" You ask, "Where are they disconnected? What part of their well is dry?" You begin to see their pain not as an attack, but as a signal. You see their performance not as arrogance, but insecurity. You see their silence not as avoidance, but fear. And then you stop trying to fix them. You hold space. Because just as you had to return to your am, they must do the same. And the best way to lead them there is to stand firmly in yours. Conclusion: the lighthouse within. You've gone to the bottom of the ocean. You've stilled the body. You've separated the I from the am. You've seen the world not as chaos, but as a masterpiece. You've observed others not as strangers, but as echoes of your own being. But the journey is not complete until you return to the surface, not as who you were, but as who you've remembered. What it means to project peace. Some spiritual teachers will tell you to detach from the world, to abandon ego, to transcend. But that's not the path. The goal is not to become so spiritually elevated that you're no earthly good. The goal is to live so deeply from your well of stillness that your very presence brings peace wherever you go. Projection is not performance. It's not the words you speak. It's not a forced smile. It's not how nice or positive you appear. Projection is when the energy from the bottom of your well, from your being, your gratitude, your divine connection, bubbles up through every fiber of your existence and silently touches everything around you. It fills the room before you speak. It softens tension without asking. It realigns people to their own center without needing credit. This is not about conversion. It's about illumination. Light the way. Don't burn the bridge. Biblical teachers often say it's not about how many you save, but how many you bring to God. And that's true. But the path isn't pressure, it's presence. You don't need to light people on fire with your passion. You just need to light the way. When your fire becomes a lighthouse, when your depth becomes visible, others will start to remember their own. Even those who are lost in the darkest waters, those who have drifted far from peace, from self, from God. They know how to find their way back when they see light. That's your role. Not to preach, not to convince, but to become such a quiet force of centeredness that the world shifts in your presence. When gratitude moves the universe, when you live from this place, from the structure of love, held together by gratitude, you project peace not as an action but as a radiance. It reaches people. It reaches spaces. It even reaches the unseen. And in a mysterious exchange, the universe cradles you back. The same energy you emit returns, but multiplied, refined, sacred. Gratitude becomes your posture. Stillness becomes your power. Presence becomes your gift. And the final truth? You are no longer chasing the light. You are the light. And this is the secret. The journey inward was never about isolation. It was about illumination. So that the one who walked through the ocean of ego, the one who reached the stillness, the one who remembered the name only God can speak, could now return and simply be.